They were tapping from our energy here. They were taking, tapping from our source here. Did you see it?
Definitely. I think we saw it, and I think most people know that's what happened. For the younger acts more so, yeah. Them, I would say times change. So the new generation of Afrobeat superstars, to them, what we at the time saw as alternative was just the norm. So to them, they're not tapping from anything. That's just the new.
They saw. You ask me where I get all my energy from the stage to the studio and to my desk. I am the energy god, and you can be one too.
You're listening to Adeshokwe Live, the Afrobeats podcast.
Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, to a brand new edition of Adeshokwe Live, the official Afrobeats podcast, where we break down the hottest topics in the culture. And I'm joined by a special guest most times to chop it up with me one-on-one. As always, thank you very much for your subscriptions, likes, and comments. Keep those numbers going up. If you haven't subscribed yet, the last time I checked, I think about 80% of the people watching this podcast have not subscribed yet. We need your subscription, so click the subscribe button. The bigger our platform gets, the better we're in position to promote our own people without waiting for others to do so. Now, this is brought to you by the Energy God Energy Drink. This is for us, by us. So go to energygod.com, pick up a pack. You know what I mean? Support the culture, support the movement. And as always, Anchored Car Sales for any type of cars. If you're looking for a banger, a brand new car, a silent, a VIP, exclusive Jeep, Range, whatever it is you want to get, Anchored Car Sales can cater to that for you. They've got special officers that will be able to tailor your own specifics, whether it's your budget, your dream car, and they would have it delivered to your doorstep. So make sure you check out Anchored Car Sales on social media across all platforms. Now, joining me in the studio for the very first time, his brother I've known for a long time. Someone sent him in the studio once and said, if there's an Alté Hall of Fame, a couple names have to be on there. This name, without doubt, has to be on the Alté Hall of Fame. Founding member of the DRB Las Giddy, one of the leaders of Native Records, one of the founding members of the Native Records, a pioneer in the culture, an Alté classic in the culture. Ladies and gentlemen, it's my brother, Teezee.
Shopsy do.
My brother, listen, man. Welcome to the podcast. Welcome to the studio. This has been a long time coming. I've been trying to get you, Budge. We going in at every time, but it's just one of those difficult things. First of all, how you doing?
I'm doing really well, Egbon. Also I've been in this game for a long time, the origins of Afrobeats in this country. And when we were doing Factory 78, it's like 2012, 2013.
2012, bro.
2013, the early days, and it's been a long journey. And
absolutely.
Sometimes some people look at us and think like, oh, these people are new to the game. Where did they come from? Did they just pop out from nowhere? People will know that you've been commentating on the culture for what 2012 will make it about how many years?
Over 12 years, about 13 years.
13 years. So this is something that is not new to us.
Absolutely, man.
To have this opportunity and this platform you have.
Listen, you mentioned 2012. At that time, you guys were very young. You were schooling here in the UK. Yeah. Before I even talk about your style of music at the time, let's talk Teezee a little bit. What's the origins? Teezee, when I found out about you guys, you were here studying then in the UK. Yes. But before then, what was the story?
Yeah, I mean, for me, I grew up in Lagos. Nigeria, predominantly on the mainland. Actually, I lived between Ilukpeju and Surulere. My father was working, he ran a nightclub. So that's where I get a lot of my roots from music. Like, I acknowledge that to my dad. He ran a nightclub in Surulere called Woodhouse. And he also used to sell clothes, like fashion design. Wow. Like Ralph Lauren, you always go and buy and sell it to the young boys.
Yeah, the hustle.
That's the
cool place.
Exactly now. So Surulere was where everything was popping off. So, my dad was definitely one of the cool guys back then. So I think I took a lot from my sister as well, us being in music and fashion. I think that's something that we heavily got influenced by our father. Just growing up, always listening to different types of music, ranging from, if he was listening to Fela, he was listening to Usher, Boys to Men, 112, everything mixed together, Style Plus. He really just had a very broad view on music. He was never I wouldn't say he was necessarily a fan of anyone, but he wanted to consume everything because he ran an establishment
that played music.
So because of that, I had a very wide exposure to music and sound. And also growing up, my mom was also, she's one of the first event planners from Nigeria.
Wow.
So she was the first person to, I think, when they did This Day concerts. I mean, the time when
those big ones, when
ones,
Jay-Z and Co.
God bless you. So Jay-Z, Beyonce, Rihanna, John Legend, Puff Daddy, all these guys came to Nigeria. My mom was one of the event planners for that show. So I must have been about 12, 13. So that was my first experience kind of watching
the
the
entertainment
industry from the inside. And when I saw it, I think that was the first time that I was ever like, wow, this is something that I would want to do when I grew up. That's why I met Wande Cole for the first time. I met the band for the first time. This must have been 2011.
Before then,
sorry.
That was like 2020, 2008.
08, 09. So that was the time when I was really like, okay, this is something that I have passion for, I have belief in, and something that I feel like I can excel in. Not just because I saw my family members kind of doing it in an interesting way, but that was what influenced me. And my grandfather as well, may so rest in peace, Baba Lisa, Chief Baya Akinola. He was in Ibadan, so I used to go to Ibadan and spend a lot of time.
I grew up in Ibadan.
You grew up in Ibadan?
So I know the Akinola, absolutely. That's a politician. He was part.
Yeah.
Wow.
So he was in and out of that. So obviously he was a school teacher. I was also an entertainer, but obviously during the Western regime, he made everyone kind of, you had to kind of pick a side.
Absolutely. You have to be in politics.
You have to be in politics, or at least be in government.
Wow.
So, he was one of the people that invested in Ginger Baker and Fela's studio. So those were stories he always used to tell me about our history and our heritage. When I told him, I love music, we'll go to Ibadan, I would dance for him and his friends, sing, perform. So it's something that was innate to me.
And you had elements from the family. Yes. So that meant that the family that you're from, even though, of course, you had to go to school and stuff, the creative part of they also supported that in a way.
They understood it. They understood it because they all dabbled in different ways, but not in the same capacity as we wanted to fully immerse ourselves in it. To them, owning a nightclub is a business.
Yes,
it's the revenue stream.
Yeah.
Owning a shop is a revenue stream, but being an artist, being an artist manager, being a record exec was still a very new terrain, But when I now look back and I tell them, like, you see, this is what you people are doing. They didn't even see how those two things connected to make the offspring that they did. But, I think all those things kind of connected to kind of form the kind of person I was.
Absolutely. Listen, then you came to the UK studying. How did you and the other boys, Fresh L and Budge, connect for DRB Last Giddy?
Yeah, I mean, for DRB, that really happened through... So Bolaji and I, we knew each other from... we grew up in Bagada together.
Yeah.
So I knew Budge in Bagada. We just... when you go to high school, those people are always good at football, or the people that are good at music. You just know your neighborhood cliques.
Yeah.
Just neighborhood cliques. We used to play football together, so I always knew of BOJ. I was just like, okay, this is one of my young boys. They play football. He's cool. He has good style. By then, he wasn't doing music. But me and Fresh L were in the same high school. We went to the same Sunday school. So we were in like Sunday school choir, Sunday school dancing crew together, that kind of stuff. So we had that bond. So me and Fresh went to the same Sunday school and secondary school. Me and Bolaji lived in Bagada together. But Bolaji and Fresh were classmates.
So there was a connect.
Everybody was just kind of, at least the three of us, they were kind of connected together and separately. So we had friendships as a crew and we had friendships as individuals, so it's always easier to grow that way,
Absolutely.
So no one, there's no jealousy, there's no...
Everybody's cool with each other.
Everybody's cool with each other.
Yeah.
And that was how we were able to, start building the DRB thing. So when we finally moved to the UK, maybe when I was about 16, 17, we all went to the same school. And that's when we started experimenting with making music together. I think, we had some other band members, shout out to Tobena, Imran. So, DRB, we started as a big collective. It was about 12 to 15 kids who just had ambition to make music. And, that's how we started recording music on our laptops in a dorm room. We started sending the CDs around to classmates. Before you knew it, the songs were going viral.
It's crazy.
Our classmates in school. And, in England, your schools are not predominantly black.
Yeah.
They're heavily mixed. So, we got that advantage. Some of us, I remember getting in trouble for one of the viral songs I did because we mentioned it's mentioned a teacher's name in the song, all those kind of things. So they called us into the class office to come and play the song, and teachers like, you know what, this is kind of good, So I think those are the things that motivate, and I think one of the people sent the CD back to their uncle in Nigeria who happened to be, I believe, a radio host or a radio jockey at Cool FM.
Wow.
And he just heard this stuff and he just thought, wow, I've never heard of these kids before, but this sounds like a new sound
Fresh
from Nigerian ecosystem. And that was kind of how we got our first break into the industry.
When I saw you guys in like 2011, 2012, apart from the music, of course, you had Tony. Tony was now doing something crazy in the UK. For us, based in the UK then, we were extremely proud because these are UK guys. Yeah. Even though you had strong Niger links, for us, you're based here in the UK. Yes. You made this popping song. But when I saw you guys, the dress, this style, I'm like, this is 2011. Yeah. You guys were dressing like you came out with them James Brown. Yes, so I remember that swag.
Like, Jimi Hendrix, yeah.
Why? How did you guys catch that? Especially at that time. You stood out so much. Talk to me about the style influence that you guys had so early on in the game.
Yeah. Yeah, I think for us, I think it was really something that it was intentional, but like I said, because my roots as well, I came from a fashion background per se, because of my dad was very experimental with fashion. He owned a fashion space. Even when we came with tailors, even when he was showing his alari or showing his agbada, he always was very meticulous with it, and he would force me to engage in doing those things as well. Not because he thought, one day you'll be a designer, just like, you should learn how to cater to your own style.
Wow.
So that was always something he just wanted to instill in me and my sister growing up. Like, if you have the chance, you should want to dress how you want to dress. Come and see how the tailor is doing this. Oh, do you want it differently? So all those things kind of affected me specifically when I was coming up, that, how do I want to dress that stands out? I wasn't fashion shy. Wearing dashiki. Remember when we made dashikis, we brought that stuff back. Full-length dashiki that'll be turned to the floor. People are like, why are you wearing a dress? Why are you wearing this? Why are you doing that?
Put the hat on.
But Bud would bring the fedora hat on. Before Future was wearing fedora hats,
crazy.
With the John Lennon glasses. So I think also, and I think just being able to consume so many different cultures, it helps you a lot growing up in Nigeria up to a certain age and coming to the UK, because then I don't feel those pressures of having to blend to what is seen as normal in the UK. Because in Nigeria, we're very individual.
Everybody was very, yes.
The woman that's selling pomo on the streets, she's color coordinating her kaftan. The guy that is doing the downfall is wearing his Arsenal jersey with his Nike shoe.
An example would be a traditional party with everybody wearing the same material, but a completely different style.
And that's thousands of people with different
different styles.
Exactly. So you've got his spot on, boss. So those things always just made me understand that standing out and having your own individual style, would always just set you apart from the norm. And it was just something that was innate to me, and I reveled in having my own personal style that stood out, and people identified me as that. Like, okay, that Teezee guy with that funny swag. That's that Teezee guy with that cool, whatever they thought. They try to know, that's
swag was different. Yeah,
that swag was different. They know that's Teezee. So that was important for me.
The funny thing, after you guys were having the moment you were having between 2011 and 2013, that was really blowing up, and then I found out that you had moved to Nigeria. So I think the first time I went to Nigeria was, after all that 2012, or maybe 2014, and I go into Nigeria. I went out one night and I just saw Budge sitting, at the club. He was just chilling, just hanging around. And if you see, my heart was like, man, this is Budge, this DRB, that we the hope of the whole UK. You guys went back home. How hard is going to be to try to compete back then? And what were your thoughts going back home and what you guys met on the music scene and the entertainment scene back home then?
Yeah. I mean, for me, because I didn't have a British passport, I'm not a British citizen. So for me, my plan was...
Your mind was go back home.
My mind was always to return back home. And maybe you say, like, in hindsight, you know, there are different journeys. You could have thought, okay, if you stayed in UK a little longer, you could have helped build the industry here. But I think it was important for us at that moment to connect with what was going on back home as well. You know, I think going back home just to face the trials and tribulations of the music industry there was very important, because, you know, seeing our colleagues, like, you know, seeing Davido moved back maybe just I'll say a year before us. A year before us. But we were, you know, that's Davido too, that's an Alté pioneer. We all were in the same studios making our first couple of songs. David is on those records. Me, David, Budge, Tobena were all making music in the same space. So to really see David be like, man, fuck that, I'm going back. I've sold my Popsy's TV, I've done this, I've done that. I'm going to Nigeria to go and face this thing, and see him enter and immerse himself and make those headways. You know, it inspires you. And it's like, you know what? If D can do it, like, you know, we can do it too. And it wasn't just because of D, because me and Budge specifically, I think Fresh still stayed in UK for a couple years after that. But Budge and I's mission was, once we're done with this PO, we need to go and face what's happening on ground, because, you know, that was it. You know, our boys were coming up. Now you see, you know, shout out to Burner. Odumodu was doing his thing. He came back. He was there in that cycle doing that. You know, all of us were all peers.
Absolutely.
More or less.
Absolutely.
Age mates, stuff. Exactly. Absolutely. We're still all peers. So as we saw that kind of Dammy Crane, you know, there were just so many interesting
There were so many young people coming between that 2011, 2013.
Exactly.
So it looked like back home was working.
Thank you. So it looked like back home was working. But, you know, the stark reality is that the industry was not in a place to accept anything that was so different from the norm at that time. And, you know, you can see that through even how long it took for, you know, maybe a Burner to break through, you know.
Facts.
Until Burner was accepted, you know, you can say he was arguably one of the most gifted, talented artists of our generation.
Absolutely.
And, you know, before they understood it back home, it was a lot of trials and
tribulations. Took a while.
So, you know, that was definitely difficult to deal with. But at the end of the day, we still had rapport with the OGs, you know, the More Hits crew, you know, still had conversations. The one thing I'll give the OGs is at least they gave room for conversations. You know, I think a few people definitely tried to sign or whatnot, but there was always room for conversation. It's not like
they were interested.
They were interested. That's the perfect thing. They were interested because stylistically,
you guys were different.
stylistically, sonically, even just the community that we were kind of curating for ourselves. At that time, we're the only ones, maybe one of the only crews doing our own show. People were not doing headline shows back then in 2012, 2013. When we were doing DRB concerts, we were doing headline shows for us by us, being the lead artist, putting supporting acts, and it was about our fans. It wasn't just a concert in Echo Hotel that they're just paying a couple of artists to turn up to. So I think people also started seeing us do that, and that was when the growth of independent solo headline shows started coming through in Nigeria, you know. And that was a beautiful moment, you know. And I think that was kind of the birth of the Alté movement. Really, really took place back home. So that's why I feel like that moment was important for us to go there, because that's where the birth of the movement really took place.
I wanted to say that, like, when you guys, obviously from us seeing you here and hearing your music here, your sound is different. Your style was different. When you went back home, obviously it just looked like you guys were trying to find each other. However, after a couple of years, even though it wasn't like the music was going crazy or whatever, your movement started to become visible.
Yes, sir.
And people that stylistically, musically, intellectually were thinking like you guys, that we started to see a separation, you know, Show Them Camp, you know, DRB, Last Giddy. You guys started to align together to create this movement. When this movement sort of thing started subconsciously, did you notice at that time that a bunch of you guys were moving away from what was then the mainstream Afrobeats, and we were going our own direction, even though it might have looked like it wasn't going to be profitable?
Yeah. I think for us, that's definitely how we felt in the moment. But I think because we went back, and straight as going back, because of the knowledge of seeing what people are doing in the UK, of doing their own headline shows, and we saw that, okay, in December, we're doing our own DRB headline shows that it's basically for our core fan base. So we saw that, okay, there's a community there.
Yep.
There are ticket buyers here, and our ticket buyers are young. So that's a generation that will grow with us. So we're not going to compete with Banga and We're not going to
Bang
be
and
Banger
the
and
big
Super
hit
Bang.
records and stuff.
We're not competing with them for their audience, but guess what? At the time, if we were 18, 19, at least the generation of kids from secondary school, from GSS1 to SS3, and maybe the A-level students, they're not looking, obviously everyone's listening to what's mainstream and popular.
Yeah.
To them, they're like, oh, these guys look like us. These guys are our age, they're our size. How are they doing what they're doing? And that was what was creating a community of people that were like, actually, maybe this is more suited to us. So, shout out to LOS. LOS, shout out to Lady Donley, Odunsi, The Engine, Cruel Santino. Those are people who are pioneering like a shift in culture. Big shout out to Show Them Camp, who are like, with the palm wine music, who really, really took on that element of curating and creating a lane for people who are not making music that was the mainstream and still had like access to performing shows and just letting your art be known, and I think those things were very important for the growth of Alté and even the beginning of what became native.
Do you know the funny thing? There's also always that undertone, like, yeah, these guys are like the trust fund kids, the rich kids, man. Did you guys feel it? Was it something that was said publicly to you guys, or was it the backdoor conversation that this is just a group of rich kids just messing around, having fun, man, spending daddy's money? These guys ain't serious.
Yeah, definitely. That was a conversation that, like you said, it was definitely a backdoor conversation, but it was also backhanded because you know how Nigeria is. There are some people that will keep it backdoor, and there are some people that want to come and tell you, hey, you think that person likes you? Do you know that this man said so about you because of da. So you know our people now. They were the people they are the people that want to hide and be throwing stones and hiding their hand, and are the people that will listen and come and say, that guy doesn't like you. Denny, that guy. In fact, he said that. So we were used to it, but I think because we knew true to ourselves and our core that wasn't what the movement was about, and also those things were not necessarily true. Like I said, at the end of the day, we're privileged because of the opportunities that were afforded to us, be able to move around, go from Nigeria to London. Those are opportunities that a lot of people are not afforded to. That's a privilege that a lot of people are not afforded to. But in terms of feeling like it's trust fund kids and billionaires kids and politicians' children, I think people in Nigeria will understand there's
levels to those type
all
of
those things, because I'm not copy. That is a billionaire, as a multi-millionaire. Those are different levels of this thing. And at the end of the day, I come from a working class family. My parents work very hard. My father is not in politics. He works hard at his jobs every day. I tell you, like, my dad was running nightclubs. He couldn't see 9 to 5 doing.
Especially at that time.
At that time, my mom was a company secretary at a bank for so long. But what they did, and what I thank my parents for doing all the time, they invested everything they made into their children. And, that's one thing that, having a child is just something that to understand. And when I look at my parents now, I'm so grateful and thankful that God gave me parents like that every last dime they had, they invested in their children. They didn't use it for anything excessive, no cars, no diamonds, no. Their investment was any money that we make, let's just use it to try and give our children a better life. And that was all. So I won't sit down here and say, oh, I had this, I had a band. No, I was living a normal life, but I knew that anything my parents had, they wanted to pour it into, me and my sister to afford us a better life so we can fend for ourselves. And they always let us know, at least in my house when we were growing up, Tenny, we don't have
we just they try. I know that kind. Yeah, that's my dad.
You understand?
Like, I'll try whatever I can
around
to get you.
You are with your friends. Yes, you're going to the same schools, but that's because I'm using
hustling
bread to make that happen for you. And
Yeah.
that was from early. That was from 7, 8. My parents were telling me this. So I was never confused. I was never in denial.
You didn't get it wrong.
I didn't get it wrong. I was never delusional about where I came from, or who I am, or what my parents do, or how much they have, or how much they invested in me. So that's why those conversations did not disturb a lot of us. Some people, it affected more than others because maybe they felt attacked by those conversations. And, some of us were like, we know our reality.
Facts.
Me and Budge were playing
hustlers,
playing ball under Bagada Bridge. We know what we were doing. We were still the middle class bougie boys in that segment, but we knew the people that we chilled with. We knew the communities were affecting. We knew when we go to shrine and chill. We were just different from what people expected us to be. And I think that's what even helped us blend across both worlds. Because I think a lot of people got stuck in being connected to, they're just Alté, so they couldn't connect with the mainstream, or they're just too mainstream, so they cannot connect to the Alté. But because of that, the way we were grown up and brought up, you know, I understood everything.
Absolutely.
You know.
When was the first time you heard the term Alté? When
So
would you say?
There are many stories about this thing, and it always seems to come back to say that it was
wrong.
Budge or someone that started it. But it was definitely myself, Budge, and our friend Tenny Karim, TK. He was the manager of RnB at the time. Yes, remember Tenny Karim? Yes.
Where's Tenny Karim?
Karim is in Nigeria right now.
Yes, he's
Lagos.
doing a lot of stuff.
Yeah, he has a
I
sneaker
think
stores
he's
and some other
getting
stuff.
involved with politics and all that.
Yeah, so he's in oil and gas.
Shout out to Tenny Karim, man. That was a believer
from day one.
From time.
Yes, real shit.
That's a good brother.
That's definitely where the Lamba came from. It was amongst us, and it definitely started as, you did the same thing you said. You guys, and this your alternative style. And because me and Budge, that's one of my best friends, my little brother. Like, we're just Lamba. We just say things. So we just like, they say you guys are so alternative for black boys, for Africa, for Nigeria boys. You're so alternative with your style. That's what they used to say to us in the UK. So we're like, now Alté P, Alté. It's just cruise. We just started like that. That's how we just started saying it, and it caught on. But you could go through the SDC route and they could say it was some different story, or you could go through another person. But I think the general consensus is that word definitely came from the DRB.
I'm with the TRB on this one. I saw it from the beginning.
From the DRB camp in some capacity. So
without doubt.
Yes. So Alté was just alternative to us, as in alternative style, alternative music. Alternative way of living. So it's about Alté.
Absolutely.
That's how it stands.
Now, you guys had started with the music. You went back home, tried to get it popping there, started to create your own thing, and slowly but surely, like you said, you were doing your shows, show them camp, fans will go there. I say it all the time that my favorite show that I attended in Nigeria was the Palm Wine Music, the Show Them Camp event. I think it was 2017. I'd never experienced anything like that before. It was just all you guys were there. It was in a park in Lagos. There was something so free about all of that.
Yeah.
But why I really wanted to focus on the Alté is it seemed like with Afrobeats, especially around 2017, style-wise, energy-wise, it looked like we had those hits with them Bengali, them Davido, Wizkid and stuff, but it looked like we were kind of stuck with sound and with style.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden, it looked like some of the Afrobeats superstars and artists went to dip into the alternative sauce with style and sound to kind of get a new type of energy that now came forward in 2019. Different people from
100%.
like Rema to Adekunle Gold, different people, Files, everybody kind of had that sauce. Did you guys know that, they were tapping from our energy here, they were taking, tapping from our sauce here? Did you see it?
Definitely. I think we saw it, and I think most people know that's what happened. For the younger acts more so, them I would say times change. So the new generation of Afrobeat superstars, to them, what we at the time saw as alternative was just the norm. So to them, they're not tapping from anything. That's just the new.
They saw.
They saw, exactly. But that's what they grow up watching. So to them, that is normal P. But definitely our peers and the OGs were the ones I would say, definitely tapped and pulled.
Yeah.
The younger generations just consumed what they saw from us, because naturally that's what you do now. The new generation, what you see before you is what you take in. So to me, it's like, I'm not Alté now. This is just
normal
cool
stuff.
Normal cool shit, right?
I
But
see
it's the OGs
Rema now in all black.
Yeah. I love that guy. He's so stylish, he's so eloquent
crazy.
with it. He just has his whole shit together, and he's just like elevating Afrobeats stylistically and sonically, and I just love the way he's challenging the genre.
Absolutely.
I really love what that guy is doing. Like he's inspiring children all around. But when I go around, I see what how the style and the music and this Afro rave thing he's doing. Him too, he has carved out his own lane, and there's a new generation of children that's
coming from that.
And that's why I feel like we did, for that generation as well.
Fact.
So you think about the Remas and the Omale's, the Tems, baby, and
CKs.
CK, exactly. So these are people who were younger, so to them it was the norm. But definitely the OGs are the ones that were like, okay, is this how guys are doing it now? Yeah, let's pluck what we need and utilize it. And I think what ended up happening was, because the Alté music didn't scale as much as the style in the community, it's the negative connotation it now got, as well as people taking from that community. It really affected the community.
I want to talk about that
Yeah.
because between 2017 and 2019, I think after Mr. Easy's crazy dominance in 2019, there was, we had, Crow Santino, we had Odunsi the Engine, we had all these guys were popping up, streams were going crazy. A lot of people started thinking, yo, the next superstar is coming from the Alté world.
Yes,
I had an interview with Odunsi where I said to him that, listen, you guys are doing amazing, but you need faces to take this thing to the next level, or else it ain't gonna go nowhere. And it looks like a couple years down the line, that's what happened. Those guys that were about to take on the world, they had Apple support, Spotify support, all of that, and it didn't quite go. What do you think happened in that space?
So what I think really happened was, there were two key factors. First one was lockdown. That 2 years of lockdown stunted a lot of people's growth. 2020, because you said, and I love you because you're a historian of the culture, because you know the dates. 2019 was the cusp when everything was about to explode.
It was about to go.
It was about to explode. Everyone had their moment. A couple people signed their big record deal. The next level was to just do what the forerunners did before us. Do what David, Wiz, and Burna and the likes did. Go to the major label, put out a good project, have some hit singles, and grow from there. That was what it was. And I think what happened was, people got those deals. We got into that situation and lockdown happened. And during lockdown, no one really knew what to do. So if you're in lockdown and you're stuck and you're unsure and the world is ending and you don't really understand, there's that group of people who would have been not certain of the next move, while there would have been someone thinking, this is my perfect opportunity for me to turn the key. And neither of those avenues are wrong, because it was a tumultuous time for anyone. So I think that was the moment. But I would also say something that's interesting. Like you said, the next face or star would come from that scene. But that's what happened, because to me,
Tems.
Exactly.
Boom.
That's it. She's regarded as RnB or soul or whatever, but she's from our community.
150%.
She's from our community. She's from our community. She's from the school of palm wine. She's from the school of
collaborations with her.
Yes,
you guys work together 24/7.
Worked on Native. She was performing at 90s Baby, and that's someone that was just super driven and super ambitious in taking her art from this cool thing that we saw at home to generating this global superstar. And that's she's also managed and works with
the Alté people,
Muyiwa and Wale. These are people who are
Muyiwa was with Nonso Amadi,
exactly, who is another Alté. So you understand what I mean? Wale is an Alté pioneer. Wale is also show them palm wine music.
Absolutely.
Those are both Tems' managers, and her stylist and her creative is Dunsin Wright, who is from the Alté community. Original creative photographer Deeds Art was the person who documented majority of the Alté community's rise. So
he's still part of the family.
The next superstar still came from. In fact, the most global appealing superstar still came from our community.
Facts.
Whether anyone wants to say that's what happened or not.
We've got to agree to
that. That's what happened. That's what happened. So,
but what about the other guys?
Yes.
Odusi was about to go. Crow Santino was about to go. They had all the backings in this world. Odusi's videos, everything was so cool. But what happened? Is it management? What do you think within the community was lacking that some of these potential global superstars haven't attained yet? Because there's still opportunity. As long as there's life, there's still opportunity.
God bless you, Shopsy, because we've seen it happen with some other talents who will
Facts.
mention it further down the line.
Facts.
But I think it's just down to support and infrastructure from people within to help them. I think at the time there were not enough young execs or young managers who understood the community to support the transition from them being These guys were independent artists that built a
Fine.
community and ecosystem by themselves and had global fan base. Then they were now put into a major label system
That didn't
without a
understand
buffer.
them.
Did not understand them, or maybe thought they understood, but there was no buffer in between. And I think, at the time, God does everything for a reason and timing. If Native Records was a thing
Back then,
you
you
if I
guys
was
would
in the
have
position, then we'll now be able to have, at least all of us would have been able to garner together and support each other in being the bridge between.
making sure they go where they're supposed to go. Because
Yeah.
you speak about Native Records.
Yeah.
You came together with your brother to create the record label. Why did you think it was time to create a platform? And what were you trying to achieve with that?
Yeah, I think God just granted us an opportunity. Shout out to another person who has always supported the culture from afar, Tunji Balogun, who's currently the CEO of Def Jam.
Def Jam.
Yes, Tunji's resume and what he's done
Deep.
for the culture is deep.
Deep.
From Wiz to signing David to working with Kendrick to signing
RnB, hip-hop.
to Doja Cat to Normani to Khalid. This is one of the most successful Nigerian men in the music industry in the last 20 years, 20, 30 years. So, he came home and he had an opportunity to he's like, okay, I'm looking around who has an ecosystem that could help generate maybe the next Nigerian superstars, and he had options to pick between a variety of people. And, God led his heart to see, that, okay, these Native boys, they're onto something. They have a magazine that platforms these people. They have a festival that platforms these people. They actually work in music, but they don't have a system to put out this music because they're the ones kind of back-ending the whole alternative industry, this sub-industry that's against the mainstream, but kind of challenging the mainstream, but has no finances, no support, no infrastructure. What if I put some infrastructure in these guys' hands and let's see what they can do, and that's what he managed to do for us. So, the moment I got the label, I was like, the first signing I have to make, I wanted to make something that was impactful. I didn't want to do something that was expected of me. I didn't want to do something that was of the norm, which is, that's our way as being alternative thinkers. So it's like, I need to get in with somebody that is going to disrupt the industry, but in a progressive way. Let the braggadocio match the level of musicality. And that's often very hard to find.
Facts.
But, I went to a show in Abuja. I don't even know if Odi knows this. So we were at the same show. I think it was one of the mainland block parties done by my boy, Alaji Poppin. And it rained. It was pouring rain that day. So even us as DRB, because we knew it was rainy season, so I came with a raincoat. I was prepared for it. Me, myself, and Budge. But when it's raining too, even though it's raining, you don't really want to perform in the rain.
No. Because number one, the fans are not going to want to stand outside, and you don't want to be wet. 100%.
Get them. So anyway, as they say, okay, you guys, you can perform last while the rain subdues. There's some other young niggas that want to perform now. I said, okay, cool. We're there, we're watching. So I see a group, I see a gang of boys, 10 to 15 boys. And they just they just run anti-world gangsters. They climb the stage, it's raining, and I'm telling you that people that were in the tent sitting with us, hiding from the rain, went towards the stage as these boys climbed. And I'm like, wow, I've never heard of this artist before. Who is this guy? Who are these guys? Because at the time, I'm not targeting a specific person. Who are these guys? And people in Nigeria are people like that style. They're very prima. For some people to come and follow you in the rain while you're performing, I'm like, these boys have something special. And I just noticed there was a leader amongst them, just someone that just had some energy that was just reminding me of DMX. Because me, at the end, I'm a hip-hop savant. I study the hip-hop culture more than anything that I've studied in this life. Hip-hop and football. That's the two things I study outside more than anything I know. So I was like, this boy that just had this DMX energy to him mixed with a 50 Cent kind of flow because he could sing his songs and he could rap. And at the same time, there was an energy force field around him and his guys. I'm like, man, this thing is going to be impactful if it can cross over. So that was our first meeting. I think secondly, we did another show, I think maybe a homecoming, and I was performing and he met me there and he came to introduce himself to me. And I was like, brother, I've seen you before. I like your style. And I think once the deal was all up and running, he was the first artist I reached out to because I'm like, yeah, I like what I see. I want us to do something brand new and something they don't expect. And this whole conversation, it was also around the time when conversation of African rap, African hip hop is dead.
Yeah, hip hop
It
is
doesn't
dead.
exist.
Yep.
Do all these conversations. So I was like, you know what? This is the perfect storm. People like me, people like Odi, a native, we thrive when our backs against the world. We thrive when they say, you guys can't make it. You guys can't do it. You're not good enough. You're not strong enough. That is when we always rise. That's when my best comes out. And I felt the same with Odumodu. So we reflected that energy. So I remember, I think we were DMing each other. So I think the same day I maybe messaged him on WhatsApp, he had DM'd me. And this is how God works. He said, Baba, if you ever start a label, I want to be your artist. I was texting him on WhatsApp.
No way.
Brother, I'm about to start a record label. You're the first artist I want to sign. We saw those messages. We just called each other. See, guy, we are mad. Let's do this, P. And the rest was history. And even it wasn't as straightforward to convince everyone around us that this was the right move. But I had so much belief in OD, and OD had so much belief in me as like an exec and someone like he's like Odumodu is very much like us. He's a student of the game. He has studied the culture. He has watched every chronox of the game to know when the tide is right. Who can I align with to make me get the best out of what I want from this and what they want from this?
Smart.
Who needs it more than anyone else? Who needs to prove themselves in this music industry more than anyone else? And I think we both fed off that energy from each other. And, straight out the bat, we went to Ghana to cook the first few records. In Ghana, that's where we came up with Declan Rice. And, that was just a spiritual thing. There was no reason for him to sing Declan Rice's name. That's just what he happened to be. You've met Odu now.
I swear.
Just what he happens to be singing. It's just what he happened to be singing. And lo and behold, we were there with one of our boys, Will, who was he's a member of the West Ham
fan group.
So he sent those messages across. I came to London for the Brits because my friend Olaolu Sloan, who was also a huge advocate of Odumodu, so it was him and my sister Iriti were part of. It was three of us that were like, we need to sign Odumodu. Even though it's my name, they're like, no, guy, we need to make sure that this thing happens because they change in culture. So, we went to the Brit Awards, and guess the only footballer that was presenting our award that day was Declan Rice. As soon as he came off stage, I went up to him. I was like, bro, there's a rapper in Nigeria. His name is Odumodu Black. We made a song about you. It's going to become one of the biggest Afrobeat songs.
Wow.
And, we're going to come back and you're going to remember this conversation we had. And this guy was like, you know what? I've heard it. I heard it on the West Ham. He was very accommodating. Like, I've heard it. I've seen it on Instagram, blah, 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 blah. And that's how things just continued building. And, just working with an artist like Odumodu, it just puts you on your toes to always want to strive for more. And, he will say the same, vice versa. Like, we feed off each other's energy. Absolutely. Because we were like the underdogs who people thought they could rule out, or your time won't come, or your time has passed,
Now, the good thing about Odumodu is an artist that is well cooked. Mm-hmm. Like he said, he already had 5 albums before he got signed. Mm-hmm. Like I told you before, his music that I was listening to 5 years ago is not that dissimilar to what we're listening to from him right now. Mm-hmm. He's always had a musical identity. He always says a lot of stuff. He's not scared of the world. But he gets into a lot of controversies. Yeah. You know your boy, man. What's the label like when Odumodu gets into another one of these storms? He don't cast. If she no suck, if she no fuck. What does the label do when he catches another storm?
Yeah. I think honestly, everything is a conversation because I think there'll be some things that are more some things that'll be more pressing than others. I think with if you know fuck or if you know suck, to us, like, he's a rap artist, he's a hip-hop artist.
Freedom.
People are not vexing for Future when he's saying, I fuck 2 sisters at the same time. I fuck bitches on Gucci flip-flops.
Yep.
Nobody's mad at Future. Nobody is vexing for Drake when Drake is saying, whatever Drake say, I sleep with you and your mama. Blah, blah, blah. So it's like...
It's the culture.
It's the culture. It's the hip-hop culture. And also... in some
we get what you're saying.
It's not like he's lying.
It's not like he's too far out.
Not too far out, but it's also not. It's not like we're not here to
Yeah.
What we're saying is it's not about bashing women or embarrassing people or even degrading men. It's just talking about what happens in our culture, and that's what hip hop heads do. That's what rappers do. They comment on their times, reflections on their times of what's going on, and
their personal experience.
It's a personal experience, and if people know the context of the song, you don't cast means that the gist has come out. It's like, oh,
everybody knows now.
That's the concept of it. So when people dig deeper into lyrics, you can understand that it comes from a place of intelligence as opposed from a place of ignorance.
Absolutely.
And stuff like that is more easier to like control. And there's some other things that
artist is going to be an artist. We saw Tiwa Savage saying she can't sign an artist.
You understand?
You wake up and they're doing something else. But over the last 4 months, it looks like, especially in Nigeria, record label execs and management have caught a lot of heat because certain artists have left their situations, contracts. There's been so many talks about label situations. How does a record label navigate these type of things to prepare yourself not to get into this situation where the artist later comes up and says, oh man, they didn't treat me well, this, that, and the third. What are you doing as a label to prevent that or prepare yourself for a future that could be Odumodu versus Teezee?
It's just that will never happen. But I think, like you said, sometimes some of those things are inevitable. How they play out, I think it's just the nature of the industry we're in. It's an industry that consumes people. It's an industry that offers a lot of it fuels a lot of things. It fuels ego. It fuels validation through fans. It fuels doubt. It fuels insecurities.
Fact.
It's an industry that there are lots of things, there are a lot of positives you can get from this industry and a lot of negatives. And it's hard to navigate. But I think the only thing you can do is what I always say, the number one thing in this our specific industry, Shopsy, and I know you're a strong believer in this, is always have God on your side, because everything else, there will be spiritual attacks in this industry because we're working in a spiritual realm with music. Music is not something like it's not physical. It's not physical. It's not business. You can't do 5 + 5 = 10. So now that's the fact of how someone is successful at music.
Yep.
You can't predict it. That's why someone can come and say, nobody sign me, nobody blow me, now God do it for me. And you'll be like, this boy is ingrateful, but in his mind, it's like...
he what he was singing, the way things were aligning was not physical.
It wasn't physical. But also, a record label can come and be like, yes, brother, you might say that, but at the same time,
we did this
investment was made to you, this feature was presented to you to put you in a position. And those conversations, it's two-edged, so it's always artist versus label. And more often than not, and I think it's hard to see, like, it happens to our biggest stars today.
1000%.
When people are making it seem like it's just Afrobeat artists.
Prince
Kanye fighting his label the other
Prince
wasn't Drake fighting his
Prince
label
was fighting his label for over 10 years. He was called the artist, the sign for a long time.
Symbol.
Yeah,
so it's like it's happening. It's happened to our greats. We see Drake,
Michael Jackson.
It's rare that situation doesn't happen because it's business, and the form of business changes as people evolve and talents grow. The more successful you are, the more you want the rules to be bent in your favor. The more your business will want more control over the control they already have. It's just one of those things.
It's going to be a tussle.
It's going to be a tussle. So the thing you can do, and what the people that deal with it amicably, is they sort it out in the back door. Does the artist want more? Does it make sense to give them more? If you can afford to do it and you don't detriment it, do that, then sign more, if that's the case. If it's not working out and the artist's in debt, hands off and you figure it out. But, and I think sometimes it's difficult to really navigate that space with the right or wrong. I think anytime stuff like that's happening,
personalities also come to play.
Personalities come into play. So it's a very dicey one. So I never look at those things and see black and white of, this person is wrong or this person is right. It's always like, there's an evolution in any relationship.
Facts.
And, we've just seen it. It's the nature of our industry. It is not an African thing. It is not a Nigerian thing. It happens in
the entertainment.
RnB, it happens in hip-hop. It happens in pop music. Taylor Swift had to re-record her albums.
100%.
They make you think it's a black people pairs. Taylor Swift had to re-record her albums so her management or her label could not
own the masters.
So it's like,
Facts.
That's a successful Oyibo girl.
And she uploaded it on Spotify, where you would see the same album that says is Taylor Swift new recordings
Yes.
and the old ones, and she basically competed with the old masters.
Yeah.
That's
Both
crazy.
are music, but someone else owns our masters, and that's just the nature of the industry. And you know, people make you think, oh, because these people don't read their lawyers or no one's reading their contracts. It's not always about that. It's just relationships change. You know, the same thing. This Taylor Swift example I used, they say her father was one of the most successful businessmen. So people are reading the contracts for this girl. It's not like
It wasn't
they have
like
no
he
idea.
was.
It's not like a street rapper that no one coerced you or put a gun to your head to sign a contract. It's just the more successful you get, the more you want rewards in your favor.
Facts.
And that's just how the game is going to go, you know. So
Now, native concerts, briefly, December this year, and sadly, about 5 years ago, you had the situation where the stage had problems. This December, it's almost like from what I saw on social media, I hadn't spoken to you, but I could tell that obviously sometimes as artists, we bring too many people on stage, and there were so many people on stage. What, in your opinion, because that could have been very detrimental for a brand that you guys have been building for so long. What, in your opinion, happened to the stage or whatever, and how have you guys addressed it going forward?
Yeah. I think obviously there's some legal proceedings going on, so we can't go too much into what's going on. But I think the beautiful thing is that, you know, we thank God that no one died.
100%.
You know, a few might
100%.
but you know, no one died. And I think obviously it just goes back to where we're from and back home, and you know, the infrastructure of what's going on in Nigeria. And I think that's why it's been very difficult for any of these international festivals to come back and do anything in Nigeria. But I think people should always look at the upside of, you know, at the end of the day, these are young men and women who are trying to, you know, create something that's going on in the outside world for the community back home. And, you know, you hire the best of the best from where you're from.
1000%.
And it's just unlucky for us. Sometimes things happen that are just out of the promoter's control. It's out of the artist's control. It wasn't even about, you know, load management on stage. Just sometimes things just happen, and it's just a constant reminder of where we are as a nation and how much further we have to go to get better. Provide the Coachella of Nigeria or the Rolling Loud of Nigeria, or to even do an Afro Nation in Nigeria, you know. So, you know, I think that was just one of the signs from that. But you know, I think everyone just took it on board. You know, now we have more support from the government. I think more people have just looked and like, you know, these guys really tried. Because at the end of the day, that incident happened in the last 30 minutes of the festival.
Yeah.
Any of the festival attendees will tell you that was one of the best festivals in Nigeria, because there were no hiccups until that moment.
Smooth.
Everyone, Wizkid came, performed, everybody performed. You know, and it was just when our headline act, who just happened to be our artist, Odumodu, was on stage, and you know, unfortunately.
Listen, man, like you said, you guys have been doing so well within the space, native, and those festivals are very, very important for the culture and what you guys are trying to do. So I still said it today, we need a lot more support from the government and more investment to take this thing to the next level.
100%.
Finally, you're wearing a Spice Army t-shirt. A Red Bull Culture Clash just happened a couple of days ago. You led the Native Sound team. My brother, that was it was a difficult one for us.
It was a difficult one for us.
What was your experience? And just tell me how it felt for you guys, man.
Man, you know, really for me, it was a fun experience. It was fun. It was a blessing to be, you know, put on that platform to kind of represent Afrobeats. And I think, you know, again, a few takeaways from that is where Afrobeats is in the UK is still not where people think it is. Globally, you know, we're not where people think it is as a culture. Like, it's popular, people like it, but when you now check the general catalog and the charts and the reality of the wider UK audience, Black British culture is dancehall and rave music and
grime. Funky house.
That is Black British culture. Afrobeats is
African culture.
It's not Black British culture.
Yeah, we just came yesterday.
So it's new. It's a new thing, and it's still fun. It's still a shiny toy. But in the reality of things, when you put it in a room, and it's not in a room that's competing with those other genres that are considered Black British heritage and culture, you now feel the size differences between those things.
Absolutely. Listen, man, I have to say Spice definitely killed it. She did what she would.
Yes.
I think the loss was very important for us. So next time, the big guns, everybody comes out, everybody answers the call. No unnecessary budget asking. I didn't even want to ask you because I know people will be asking for some crazy money. This is culture. This is general pride, and we need a lot of people to come out. But it was a fantastic experience for us, and I can't wait for us to have that again and really be able to pull out the big guns for
The
that.
Afrobeats podcast.
Right. Right.